Hey everyone, it's Matt Williams. Welcome to today's episode of the Drone Business Show. Great to have on board chatting to us today Stephen Sutton from Flyby Guys and Drone Bundle. Stephen, thank you for joining us, sir.
Hi Matt, good to see you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while. It's so funny, isn't it? Like, it's amazing getting all of these personalities and thought leaders and stuff from around the industry back on again. And we've all bumped into each other along the way and been on similar podcasts or similar YouTube live shows. But very rare that we actually get a chance to speak. So it's amazing to have that honor of you joining us today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
So mate, jumping straight into it, really, like, people probably can't avoid but hearing, if you're listening to the podcast or watching on the YouTube channel, that you are from Scotland, I gather. Whereabouts are you from originally?
Yeah, I'm from Glasgow actually originally. So yeah, based at, from the UK, and currently now living in Finland, living in Helsinki. So we set up Flyby Guys about 7 years ago. Set it up with Chris Moore, another Brit. So it's primarily, it started really out as a core of Brits, but we are a Finnish company, but we do our operations globally. So we are working, obviously around the world, and we've been working in Middle East, Africa, Asia, all over Asia, as well as all over Europe, as well as Finland as well. So we do daily operations in Finland, but we do, a lot of stuff globally.
Nice. If you don't mind me asking, how did you end up going from Glasgow to Finland? Is there an interesting story there, one that you're able to tell us, or do you want us to move on quickly?
In a past life, I was actually a musician in my past life, and I was, I was a touring musician. So I ended up coming over to Finland and met a rather beautiful woman, and that since then it's been history.
Isn't that normally the way, right?
So with the
But that's cool. I'd never realized. What do you play? What did you play? Do you play?
I was a bass player and I was a singer, so I was a session bass player. So I used to play a lot and tour with different bands and stuff, So and that mantle's been handed down to my daughter now, so she's now playing as well. So she's now she's still at school, but she's playing and she's doing lots of musicals and stuff, So yeah, so it seems to run in the family. Yeah.
Very cool. I love that, mate. That's yeah, amazing. And again, when you look at it, I suppose bringing it back down to the people who might be listening to this podcast, like, there are so many different things that people do before they get into the drone industry or whatever it might be. And all of that diversity, actually, I think, is one of the things that I found fascinating throughout the drone industry. Like, for me, being in a military background and career before I started in the drone space, there's quite a few people that seem to come through that route and through traditional aviation into the drone industry. But it is fascinating seeing people coming from all these diverse backgrounds, bringing different little bits of ingredients to the pot in the industry itself. And I think that's one of the things that eventually will make the industry amazing, like really sustainable and amazing place to be.
Yeah, of course. And when I moved here and then I retired, if you want to say, from music, and I started to, get a real job in a sense, if you want to call it that. I was working in the telecom industry. So I was working in the telecom side for about 12 years. And then, so when one of the reasons why we set up Flyby Guys, so when we formed Flyby Guys, is that we wanted to go into the industry and then focus on certain sectors. And one of the sectors that we wanted to focus on was telecom. And I mean, that was back in 2017. And we were thinking about AI. So, AI was a big part of what we wanted to do. And we have been doing that. So we're still, to this day, we are, we've been doing telecom inspections in Germany, Poland, Austria, Finland, Estonia, and Lithuania. So we've done it all over the world, so it has been fantastic, but again, it's not easy. But again, if you have that background, if you have something in the background that can help you, then of course, then that is, that's a good incentive to push you to go in that direction if you want to go into the drone industry, which of course, as we know, is not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the keys, right? That's one of the things that anyone who's been watching the videos I've been putting out lately, the kind of content that you put out about business, that other people around the industry, Jason Sansusi as well, he's putting a lot of this stuff out where it's like, if you have something, and it's not a prerequisite, right? By any stretch of the imagination, there are pathways and ways to become successful, find solutions that solve pain points. But if you have a, um, not a passion, because I'm very much against the whole you should do what you're passionate about, because it doesn't always work. But if you have something that is in your background that means that you are naturally kind of inclined towards a part of the industry, or if you're if you're a professional salesperson, don't necessarily come into the drone space thinking I'm going to be the best drone cinematic pilot in the world. Actually, is there a company out there who is in the drone space that really needs a professional salesperson with your skills, and you could make a couple $100,000 a year doing that rather than scraping along trying to. So I think we're reaching that point now where, if you've got a background in something specific,
Yeah.
lean into that is
Yeah,
one of the things I'd say.
absolutely. And of course, it really is, it is all about doing business. I mean, sales and business are two different things, obviously, but we don't do, we don't go out and look for work. I'll be really honest and say that since we've done Flyby Guys, or let's say the past maybe 5 years, we haven't actively went out and looked for work because the work does actually come to us. We've done. I think we've been quite lucky with our name and our reputation and the work that we've been doing. That the work does in a sense come to us. So so when the work comes to you, you then have to do the business in order to make that happen. Those are two completely different things, um, I think that and I know that you will agree with me on this, that as you've been saying, that when someone wants to be the cinematic drone guy or whatever it is, it's not as simple as that. It really is not as simple as that at all. In fact, that's the one thing that the industry doesn't need anymore. Because they're if you look at people who are doing that, who come from the cinematic background, who they have big heavy lifts and they're working with big rigs and all the rest of it. Your let's say your a typical Mavic and all the rest of it is not being used for that, and it would never be
Yeah.
used for that. So
Yeah.
it is a completely different ballgame.
So it's very difficult to break into that kind of thing. I think dry, unless you've
Mm,
got contacts or experience or skills or something like that. And that's not to say you can't build those up over time,
of course.
but don't expect to come straight in and do that. I think if we could just before you and I go off diving down into the weeds and breaking down business and all that sort of stuff, which is amazing and kind of the message that everyone needs to hear. What is How did Flyby Guys kind of start, and what's that journey been like for you? Like, why did you start that? What do you guys even do?
Mm.
What can you explain the business and the business model and how it's kind of evolved over time so that we can get an idea of that journey?
Yeah, certainly. So when we started, we were sitting in a pub not too far from the office here, and we were sitting there, with Chris, and we were, you know, I was flying a drone, so I was actually flying a drone purely out of a hobby and taking photos, and really, I was enjoying myself, and I was getting a bit of attention from the photos, and Chris was asking me, is there a way that we can monetize this? And when you're on your third or fourth beer and you're, you're kind of going, of course we can, of course we can do
There
this.
must be a way.
There has to be a way. And we were thinking, could we do inspections and whatnot? Because I mean, we didn't really look at this. This wasn't, so it was just ideas. And I went home that night. He went home that night, and we were just looking online and checking. And then the next day, or I said that night, I I thought of the name, the Flyby Guys. So I actually had the name, and I contacted him the next day and said, "How about if we have a company, we call it Flyby Guys?" He went, "That's it." He said, "That's it." Okay, so that's where it started from, and we were out there, and we were just kind of talking to a few organisations, talking to municipalities, and here in Helsinki, and we were lucky enough to get some projects. that were were paying, and we were talking with a few telecom companies. We'd done some projects with them, and that was great. Then COVID hit. So COVID hit, and we thought that, well, of course, this might not be too good. And we got contacted by Intel, Intel, who make the chips, who were doing the drone light shows. And they had, like many large organizations, um, during COVID, that there was a massive travel ban. So none of their staff could travel at all. So they had shows lined up all over the world, but they could not do any shows. So their idea was to have a chat with us, see if we were interested. They would train us on the drone light show system, and then we would do the shows. But we had to go into a tender thing as well. So it was a full, like, 3-4 months of negotiations and meetings and trying and whatnot. Eventually we got it, which was great. Then they shipped us out to Germany, where they got us trained. It was like 5 days training. And we were really good. I mean, we had this aviation way of thinking, and they have that as well. I mean, when you're dealing with Intel, which are a Fortune 100 company, so you're dealing with some serious stuff. Long story short, everything was great, and by the end of the week, they were going to ship us out to Dubai for 2 months to do shows. So
Nice.
we ended up spending 2 months in Dubai doing
Wow.
2 shows every night for 2 months, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And then it steamrolled from there. So we just ended up continuing. We were doing shows in Asia, Africa, all over Middle East, and that was happening for about a good year and a half, until Intel sold the system to Nova Sky Stories, which is now owned by Kimball Musk. So we ended up
Okay.
working with them as well. So we ended up continuing working with them, and then others, and then of course that kind of steamrolled into that. We got more work with the telecom side. So we've been doing inspections for telecoms all over Europe. We do wind turbine inspections here in Finland, so we've done hundreds of wind turbine inspections, and still more drone light shows. And we are now currently, our daily operations is that we are doing a lot of construction sites. So there's a lot of data centers being built here in Finland at the moment. It's really big. So we are doing daily inspections for them, and yeah, it's been going great. And then we had Drone Bundle, so I'll just go on from Drone Bundle there. So one of the reasons why we formed Drone Bundle is because when we were doing the wind turbine inspections and the telecom inspections, we were having difficulties with the communication between the client and the pilots. So they didn't know what was being done. So we wanted to create a platform where we could bring in our clients and also have the pilots there, manage the flights every day. And once they're confirmed, then the clients would see that as done as well. So this was a great way to make things done, a lot easier. And we built the platform from that, and it also has a CRM, and we also have billing and whatnot, and many other things. So it's so it was really from the pains of doing these daily operations when you have pilots all over the world, and then and you're not sure what's happening. So if you have a platform now, this is all streamlined, and of course it's now a lot better. So this was a natural progression for us.
Nice. And I think that's, again, this is one of the things I think that from lots of the people that we speak to, lots of the people we have on, lots of people who are in the network and are reaching out to us now all the time, it's this kind of mindset, I think, which goes from sat there thinking, what can I do? How can I do something? And it is all about that. Well, there's a pain point here for me or for someone else. And actually, let's explore a way, not necessarily make a solution for it straight away, but is there a way that we could remove this pain point? Because the problem is, of course, some pain points, there's, brutally honest, there's no money in, or it would be, it wouldn't be proportionate to create a solution because the cost or time involved in creating that solution won't justify the money or whatever that you might make at the end of it. But if there is, and you can merge those two things together, then it's actually a very good way of, I think, it's probably nowadays the only way of finding that niche. You know, everyone's looking to build the next Facebook or the next Twitter or X or whatever, and it's like,
Of
well,
course.
yeah, that's cool, but they've been done.
Mm,
Actually, solve a pain point for a specific person or a specific type of person. And
mm.
that's really, I think, where the money sits and lies nowadays.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you know you can only test it yourself. So we only intended Drone Bundle to be to be like an internal tool. That was and when we were developing it, we had our pilots use it, so it was being used every day, and we were really seeing that this is making a difference. And of course, we were getting the feedback from the pilots, and we had to have honest feedback from them. So we had to say, look, if there's something bad here, if something's not working, please tell us, because we will see it through our own glasses, which of course is fine, but you don't see it. Or you maybe not as honest as you would like to be. So that was good, and so we proved that it was something that was working. And then when we launched it in November, we were really surprised. We were actually really, really shocked at the amount of companies, especially in the US, because you know, and it seems to be larger companies with a lot more pilots. So having this, not doing things on spreadsheets, that you have things easier, so everyone gets notifications, everyone knows where they are when the flight's done. It's been done, and all the rest of it. So yeah, it really has. We've been quite surprised ourselves by how popular and just how efficient it is. I don't want to go down the efficient route, because of course that's like a no brainer. But it's just that it works for people. It really works for operators, and that's the main thing.
Interesting. Do you guys? Is there like is there a free trial or anything of that people can have,
Yes.
or is there a way that people? Okay,
Yeah, so there's actually two things on the website which of course is really good. Is that I mean, there is a working demo on the website, so you can actually just go to the website and just try the demo without even actually creating an account. So there's a working demo there, where you can just go in and you can see how things work. Then, if you want to sign up, there is a free trial, so you can actually go in and you can just put your own pilot in there, and you can put your own drones and whatnot as well. Because we don't have anything to hide, we don't have, we're really confident with it. So if you want to try it, you just go.
nice. And where we'll drop the links into the kind of show notes and the video description. Whereabouts will people go to if they want to grab that? Take a
They can
look.
go to dronebundle.com, and they can go there
Nice.
and they try it out. And we've got lots of material there to help you along the way. We do also have a DJI app as well, so you can download that, and then you can upload your logs. So you can sync your
Nice.
logs if you want to. So and then one of my favorite things is the log reader. So we have this amazing log reader. So when you sync the logs, you see everything about the drone. You see everything where it is. You see how the strength of the GNSS, the radio. You see the temperature of the battery. You can see how far it went, or the height it went, and if there was any height changes, you will see that along the way. That's really good for the auditing. So when it comes to Part 108, or even for the SORA, so when any company has to be audited, you'll have the log, and you can export those logs into a PDF. We have a really good reporting system even within the project. So if you have a project and you have all your flights in the project, we have this PDF report, and you get every detail about what's been happening. So it's really good for the authorities to see. So you don't have to do anything else apart from just print out your report.
Nice. Make it as easy and as simple and as painless as possible, right? That's the whole point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
Just then, so I suppose going back to the Flyby Guys thing for a second, if I can, just that story, just launched it. Well, kind of formed a bunch of questions for me in my mind that I think might be worth exploring if possible. So obviously yourself and Chris sit down in the pub, you come up with this kind of, is there a way of doing it? You look into ways to get to generating revenue with drones, and come up with a great name as well, and manage to secure the domain for it, which isn't as easier said than done nowadays.
It's not. It's not.
as
It's
well.
not. It's not. We,
Yeah.
and we got lucky with that. I
Yeah.
will be saying, there's things that I'm very happy with, and the name, and the name I'm really happy with, So
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. So how do you go from kind of sat at the pub doing that to speaking to people like Intel? Is that what does that piece look like? Because obviously, you've mentioned already that there's a business journey and business development journey, I suppose, essentially, to kind of put it in a box. What did that business journey look like? Because you go from you and Chris chatting about it and presumably setting up the business together and working on it together to all of a sudden, not too long down the line, it seems, you're engaged by Intel and up and running. Was that a PR piece? Was that just happened upon you on social media? Because you're not the only person who are blue chip like that we've had on the show, actually. We've chatted to people before where it's like they've done one or two things that people have seen, and all of a sudden IBM are in touch and they're off doing an international, 2 billion view video or whatever it is, and that gets them all the work they're ever going to need. What does that journey look like for you guys?
it's been really it's all been about the networking, and your network. I think that your network is so valuable, and the more you meet people and you talk and you showing what you're doing, have your name out there, have your name recognized. You know, I'm sure. I'm sure you will agree with me that your network is one of the most valuable assets that you have. You might have some great drones. You have your office and all the rest of it. I really consider my network to be one of the greatest assets that we have in Flyby Guys, because without that network, we probably wouldn't be here right now. And we've really mixed it with, we talk, the amount of people that reach out to us every day just to, that they kind of want to be part of what we do. They want to talk with us, they want us to go and speak, it is really, really incredible. And that comes from your network. So, you can put your adverts out in the press, you can do whatever you want on Facebook and all the rest of it. But I firmly, very strongly believe, and I would say LinkedIn has been really, really good for us as well.
Okay.
I know for many people LinkedIn doesn't work, and they can be negative about it, but LinkedIn has been phenomenal for us, and the amount of work that we get from that has been incredible. But yeah, the network is key, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring up the LinkedIn thing, because for me, LinkedIn is a big piece of the puzzle. I don't profess to be particularly good at it necessarily, although what defines being good at being on a social platform, right? But but what I have done over the years is when I've needed to, I've been there consistently and actually tried to add value. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, LinkedIn doesn't work," but if you're not adding value, if all you're creating is noise, or if all you're doing is commenting on someone's post or liking post, that isn't like networking. That isn't putting the work in to grow your network. It's just maybe adding to the noise. And if you want to, this again, my opinion, especially on LinkedIn nowadays, because it's becoming more and more like Facebook used to be.
Yeah.
People are posting pictures from being on holiday and Christmas, and it's like, okay, cool. That isn't necessarily what LinkedIn was about 3 or 4 years ago, but whatever. There's now even an even higher kind of base level of noise. That noise floor is even higher. So you have to provide value. And if you see, for me, it's the same as business and it's the same as networking. Like, you wouldn't go to a networking event necessarily and speak to all 100 people in the room, because there's probably 90 people in the room who are never, ever going to want the service or the solution that you provide. The trick is to try and find the 10 people that will spend £1,000 with you and go and speak to them if you can. And it's the same on LinkedIn. Like, you don't need 35,000 followers. You know, you're not trying to be Gary Vaynerchuk and sell media or influencer deals or whatever it may be, as nice as it would be to be in the position Gary's got himself into, right, by doing that. But what we're trying to do is very specific. And from that, I think you need to sit down before you even try and do things like LinkedIn or networking and go, right, what do I want to be doing? Who do I need to speak to be able to get into that network and start delivering those solutions to people who value what I do? You know, and then what kind of content's going to be, can I make that's going to help them? And and that's what you need to be doing.
I think you've just really, you know, there is that one word there that you've used there a few times, and that is value. You know, actually creating the value or actually giving the value, you know, is the most important aspect of what we do in the drone industry. And I, you know, I really hate this, you know, word that people are using, or the phrase people use all the time when they try to sell their services. They say, "Well, drones are cheap. Drones are cheaper, so that's why you should use it." And it's like, no, absolutely not. You are providing value. You are providing a value service. And that is the key. And if you can tap into knowing what the value is that you are actually providing within the service that you're offering, you will always be a winner. You will always, you know, you'll never have to prove yourself in that sense. And that is so, because I see this a lot. I see this with people who are advertising, and of course I do understand that, you know, people are new into the industry, but they but they just tend to, let's say, latch on to the easiest, the lowest, let's say, common denominator. Drones are cheap, so therefore you should use them. And it's like, no, absolutely not. That's the worst thing you could ever say, you know.
That's why we get the rush to the bottom on price for everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're just lessening yourself, and you're bringing the entire industry down by saying that, because if you're providing value, you can be providing services that are the same as what someone else would have been doing, that you, if you want to say replacing or whatever, I don't know. But but it's the value that you are actually providing. A good example of this would be, the construction work that we're doing every day. And, the construction, we're doing about, 6 sites or something. And the amount of people who are waiting on that, information to be ready is huge. I mean, I found out that there's one site that we do, and there's 300 people waiting for that information to be ready. And I was thinking to myself that, this, is so, it really just shows the importance of what you're doing and why they need this done. Because they, obviously when you're doing, let's say a construction site, whatever, you're really seeing you're seeing the site from a very different perspective. So they can fly people in from other countries, they can walk around and they can go, well, okay, that's different. But when you see it from the air, when you look at what that's been done, it makes it's so different, and they get to see so much more, and that's the value. So 300 people every day waiting for that to happen. There you see the importance of why, and it's not about cheapness, it's about the value you bring.
Doing the job properly as well.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's an often overlooked thing. Like, at some point you've got to dive in, maybe with both feet, and commit and say, yep, I can do that, and make it work as you go along. But also, I think you need to make sure that, particularly if you're doing the commercial stuff, that you have practiced beforehand, and not just practice the flight or the data collection, but actually that whole process of, for me, it starts at the kind of, again, the ideal client profile and the wording you've got on your website, because that's a natural filter then for the people who are going to want to use you and that you're going to want to work with. But it's all of that. How do you work with the client? How do you collect the data? How do you process the data? How do you deliver the data? That's something that people often overlook. And then how do you make sure that you close the loop on it and give the client an opportunity to say, this worked really well for us, this didn't work so well for us, and this was really bad. And then you go back in and you adjust and change your procedures so that you make that better if you can every single time. Eventually, you'll end up in a good place, but you've got to be able to do it, I think, to a degree by practicing before you commit to something.
Yeah, once knowing, uh, let's say, especially if you're if you're doing construction sites, because they can change all the time as well, and we tend to want to. I always like to do a site survey before we do any flights. So I always like to do a site survey, and especially on a construction site, because it can change every day. So, if you're flying, if you're flying at 50 meters, uh, there can easily be a crane erected the next day at 75 meters, and so you really need to be on your game and not be lazy by just going up and then just flying, and all, because some of the areas that we're doing are actually quite big, so we have to do it in parts. So and then you can get there and it can be, oh, well, there's a crane there. So, how do you deal with that? Do you know how to speak to the right person? Is maybe there's there's something on one of the aviation websites where it's saying that is so high because there might be helicopters flying nearby or something. So it's really understanding your environment, which of course is really, really important.
Yeah, especially like you say in that aviation world, which is what we are in the crossover between, right, in the uncrewed space and where we are. The I think really interesting, like so potentially people listening to this, we're talking about kind of where you guys are now, and it's funny because we actually said at the beginning like the cinematic drone space is probably fairly saturated now. It's easy to say that I think that most of the places in the drone space are saturated because they're full of people who are potentially generalizing or have the same equipment and the same baseline level of skills. The potentially interesting story, I suppose, the way I had no background in film and TV. I left the military, got our drones. We started doing some work, big model helicopters with cameras on before the drone thing even started. So we did start to build a bit of a network and some repeat work through that when we got into the drone world properly. But the way I did it was, again, I went through that process of, right, I want to go into film and TV because I want to effectively, I suppose, I looked at us flying drones around. We were just a piece of grip. We were just we were part of the grip team where we just need to get a camera to where the producer director want or need it, and to move it how they ask us to. We're nothing special. We're not, it's just we're using the drone as a piece of equipment to move a
Yeah,
camera around.
tool, a tool. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just a tool to move the camera around and help tell a story. And that ultimately you can charge a lot of money for doing that. So how do I go from where I am now to, okay, I'm on set now for Hollywood productions? It's like, it's a crazy, how do you do that? And it's like, okay, cool. Well, I need to get in front of the right network. So I actually, I got at the time, got us an office at Pinewood Studios in the UK because I was like, well, most of my ideal clients, the people who are shooting all day, every day, the James Bond stage is there, um, our ideal clients, that's where they are all day, every day. And we had hoodies and t-shirts printed, and we had a vehicle wrapped, and I drove to Pinewood Studios and I worked from that office every day, and I would sit for about 4 hours over the kind of long lunch period in the cafe
uh-huh.
with our drone hoodies and stuff on, with the truck parked in the car park outside. And eventually you get chatting to cast, you get chatting to crew.
Mhm.
Like, oh, you're the drone guys. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, the drone guys we're using have just crashed their drone. Is there any chance you guys can come and like, yeah, sure. We've got one in the office. We've got a spare in the truck. We can head over. Yeah, no problem at all. I mean, it's not quite that quick, right? You don't just jump onto
Yeah,
set
of
that
course,
that
of course.
day. But over a couple of months of doing that, we started to build a network of the right people. Got invited to some of the dinners at Pinewood and things like that, where you're sat next to people who are doing this all day, every day. And that that's what we did to grow our network. So I think a part of that is getting yourself, thinking where you want to be, working your way backwards. How can I deliver it? If so, how? And what do I need to do? And more importantly, the who do I need to engage with to be able to do that and find where they are and go from there, right?
And that's, it just solidifies what I was saying earlier. Your network is so important. And when you build that network up, and when you have that, and you have your name, and they see you and they recognize you, I'm more happy if they recognize the name rather than me. So it's so important, and I do think that it's very much overlooked, and I think that's a really good example, and it really supports what I was saying earlier as well. It's so damn important. It really is, and if you get that network, once you get your network, you look after these guys, look after everyone on it, because they are so valuable.
That's it, and that fundamentally is why we're building this drone business network now. It's what we're trying to do is so that people can have a way to interact with each other and put people around the right people and interact, with each other and learn, build, and grow. Because that, the phrase is, I think, that your network is your net worth, right? And it's so true, particularly in this industry. Just on to again, just kind of thinking back to what you were saying about how quickly you guys grew and the work you were doing all over the world. Was it just you and Chris doing all of that? And like, how did you do that without burning out? Or did you have to build a team quite quickly? And how did that look? Where did you find people if that was the
Yeah,
case?
we did actually build a team. Chris was here in Finland. He was doing all the everyday stuff. And again, that's where Chris is great. I mean, Chris was, he's 100%, always got your back. He sees things before I see them. In a way, and it's been that way since day one. He's been the perfect business partner. He's been supportive and everything else. But yeah, we did build a team, so it was kind of especially in the drone light show. So we had to have. I think I had to have one, two, 3, 4, 5. I had to have 5 people, including myself. So I had to five people when we first went away, and then we just kept that up, and we would kind of rotate the guys. I was there every day, so I was project managing all the time, and having to deal with all the pains of it. But of course, that was great, because again, you learn, which of course is really good. And but again, with your network, the people that you can rely on. The people you can say, if we bring this person in here, if we bring that person in, we do that. And it's always worked for us. It really has always worked. And but I've always had a team who have been totally reliable, and I can trust them. I can trust them 100%. And I think a good example. I'll tell you a little story about one guy that. So when we went to Dubai, I also had to hire visual observers when I was there, and because we're going to be there for 2 months, I actually reached out to the drone community in Dubai, and I went to ask them, we're looking for VOs. If anyone wants to come down, I've got 2 months of work. You can come and just come and go as you please. And there was one guy in particular who was there from the very beginning, Ed, and he was a drone pilot, and also FPV, and he was really good. He was really good. Young guy. And eventually Intel came to us and said, look, we want you to expand the team. We want you to kind of have more, because we've got more shows coming. And then we asked Ed if he wanted to learn the system, which he was like, yeah, it's great. So Ed did, and he joined the team, and we ended up, Ed was joining us in Africa and Indonesia and all the rest of it, and blah, blah, blah. Then he went to join Dronisos. And then so he joined Dronisos, the French drone light show company. He was with them, which was great to see him. He was, and now Ed has joined Nova Sky Stories, which is basically Intel. So he's now officially a full-time pilot in Dubai, working for Nova
Amazing.
Sky Stories. And this full turnaround, the way that it went, and he phoned me up a couple of months ago when he got the job. I didn't know he got the job. He phoned me up and said, I just want to tell you that I'm now working for Nova, and it wouldn't be because of you. And it's like really, really great to see how that whole thing went around. And your team, your network, the guys you work with, they are so valuable, and so yeah, so seeing how Ed is there, and if Ed's watching, I've always been proud of him, so he's done some great work, and he deserves to be where he is.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It is amazing as a kind of a leader, I suppose, in a way, or manager, whatever it might be, um to have that happen where people that have come into your orbit and potentially then you've helped them get to where they need to be to then spin off and do other things. It's very cool. Um, I think the the team piece is really interesting. It's a very difficult transition for a lot of people to make, I think. But one of the biggest points I think that your journey has highlighted, and the story that you've just given to us has highlighted, is a really important one for people to get their head around when they start out in the drone industry. This is an industry where, by its very nature, I've found in particular being very successful in it. You're finding now a lot, and I find that most people I speak to who are successful and are making good money in it, in general, it is an industry that, because it is, those skills are transferable geographically. If you limit yourself and can only limit yourself to operating in your local town or your local city, you probably are going to struggle. Again, being honest about it, like, you are not going to make six figures. If I'm honest, you're probably not going to make a living if you are not willing and able to at least explore or think about traveling, or if not, have a group of people who can do that for you. But again, you've got to get yourself to a position where you can afford to pay them and all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
to do that. So it's a big one of those things that, I would prefer to put people off starting it and take it from anything other than a hobby if they expect that by staying at home or being local or working 9 to 5 or doing Monday to Friday, they're going to be able to pay the bills. I don't think you are. You are going to have to accept that you're going to have to work with other people, probably bring other people on and split some of that revenue with them to be able to deliver a task. I've literally been all over the world with the drone industry, and I got into it thinking we'd got a new baby at the time. We'd just got married, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be able to work for myself. I bought a PlayStation for the office. Like, never turned that PlayStation on because luckily we got busy. But literally traveled the world to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to have to stop this now because I am away too much, even though we were charging $2.5 grand a day, actually, just for me to go out,
Yeah.
which was a lot of money. No, but actually I had to then weigh up, well, I'm away for 6 months, 6 weeks in Bermuda, came back for 4 days, went out for 10 days to Peru, came back for a couple of days, went out to Morocco for 4 weeks. And you're like, this is awesome. I'm living the dream. I'm getting paid a fortune. I'm flying drones. I'm on set. It's amazing. But I didn't
It's
see
tough.
my wife and kid for a year.
Yeah. It's I'll say I'll be really honest that the drone industry is one of the this is one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. This is one of the it's a tough industry. It will chew you up and spit you out if you don't do it properly. If you don't, if you don't actually commit, and you'll know that, I have to work, sometimes 10 to maybe 12 hours a day, and that's just normal for me. It's interesting what you said about this localized thing, and you have to think out. Now, we've always had this think big. We've always had to think bigger. And if I can give anyone a piece of advice, and you just hit the nail on the head there about this local thing, is never name your company as a local company.
Yeah.
Never do that. That's
Yeah.
you're just putting restraints on yourself right away. Like, Barnsley drone Barnsley aerials or something, or whatever it is, that kind of thing. Don't do that. Just give yourself a name that can be recognized, that that can work in whatever country, because it will open it up. Because if you have, a lot of the companies that we work with, in fact, every company we work with is an international company. Even the construction stuff that we're doing here, none of those none of those companies are Finnish companies. They're all international companies. So
Interesting.
yeah. So they want to, so if they're big, they're looking for someone who also is big. And of course, you can mask that. You can, I won't say fake it, but you can make yourself look big. You can give yourself that, bit of muscle. You might not have it, but you can show it. And if you show it, that helps. That helps with your sales. That helps with, your inbound. So don't be scared to flex your muscles, even if you don't have them. But don't name your company a local thing, because it will just tie you. As you say, you won't be able to have the growth.
Yeah, and that's something that we see a lot, right? Especially because those domains become available. One trick with that, so just something that I know we've employed in the past quite successfully across different businesses, not necessarily in the drone space, actually, in other businesses as well, is have a local domain for lots of different areas that 301 forwards to your main domain. So when someone types in Barnsley Drone Services, it automatically goes to Matt's Drone Company. That can work quite well, but again, it's not an SEO podcast, so I'm not going to go into that now. But
I don't do SEO stuff.
I just know it's a tactic that we've used in the past when we were doing certain things in different industries that did work quite well. But
I think in terms of Flyby Guys, we have. I think we own like some .co.uk. We own .fi for Finland, and we have .com, obviously. So but I mean, that's what Chris does. Chris does all that. So he's the he's the brain
lovely.
of all that. So and it's good, and I'll. But if I can give another one little tip, is that, I mean,
Please do.
if you have a company, if you're starting a company and you're wanting to do, for example, roofing, if you want to do roof inspections or whatever it is, I think it's good to actually go out and speak with someone who has got experience in the roofing side and bring them in, have them work part-time for you. Because if you have someone who specializes and speaks the language of that service that you're doing, it adds more credibility to what you're doing as well. Now anyone can go up and fly above a roof and take photos, but if you don't speak the language, if you don't speak, when it comes to that actual profession, it really holds you back. So whatever side you want to go into, make sure you have connections with your network. You have those connections so that you have got some credibility there. It's very important. I mean, for us working in the telecom side, we do know the telecom, so we do know the lingo in that sense.
Yes.
So it was kind of easy for us, but still, from a technical side, you really had to, we had to be quite careful, because they will find you out if you're just someone who takes pictures and go, oh well, there's a flash drive, or they go, what, so really have to be careful how you do that.
That's it. Yeah, really important message, I think, to wrap it up, is that whole collaboration over competition. And, don't think that by bringing an expert in, they're going to take away all your customers and stuff. Actually, from my experience across, again, many different industries, many different business ventures, and by the sounds of it yourself as well, actually bringing in other people and partnering with people, even if it's a not necessarily a paid partnership. It's just you bring the right people in on board and have them as part of your kind of consulting team, but you can show them as part of your team. It's very, very powerful. Very powerful. Listen, mate, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's getting towards the end of the day where you are. It's the start of the day where I am. It's the beauty of technology in different time zones, right? But by the sounds of it, it's a snow day here and a snow day where you are. So that's pretty cool.
It's a snow day, or as we call it, Thursday.
Well, there you go. Yeah, same. Yeah, that's it. But no, listen, thank you ever so much for your time. It's lovely to hear you. Thank you for sharing your story and being so candid with us all. I'll drop all your links to the various different platforms and software and things in the show notes if you're listening on Spotify, into the video description if you're watching on YouTube. But I hope everyone enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast or the show if you haven't done so already. I've been Matt Williams. I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, fly safe and blue skies.